My name is Luna, and at 32, I believed I had finally outrun the shadow of my family's financial chaos. After a decade of careful independence, a single moment of weakness cost me everything. The next morning, I found my savings account drained of $78,000. When I confronted him, my father just shrugged. "We needed it more than you." That single sentence dissolved any remaining fiction of family I had allowed myself to entertain. Before I continue, I want you to hit that subscribe button if you have ever had to build a fortress to protect yourself from the very people who should have been your shelter. My car was an anonymous gray sedan parked 2 blocks away from the house, but it felt like a command center. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. The shock from my father's words had bypassed all the usual emotional circuits and plugged directly into the coldest, most methodical part of my brain. For 14 years, I had been the silent investor in their version of a family, contributing affection and financial bailouts in exchange for the hope of some eventual return. Now, I understood. It had never been an investment. It had been a subscription, and I had been footing the bill. My compassion had been a luxury they'd overdrafted for the last time. This wasn't a betrayal. It was a default on a long-standing emotional loan. And I am an excellent debt collector. My hands were perfectly steady as I opened my laptop. The screen's cold light illuminated my face in the darkness. My fingers flew across the keyboard, a flurry of precise, deliberate actions. First, the bank. I navigated directly to the online portal for reporting high-value fraud. I filled out the form with clinical detachment. Asterisk unauthorized transfers, asterisk. Asterisk. Total amount, $78,000, asterisk. In the field marked times relationship to account holder times, I paused for only a second before typing times source of exploitation, asterisk. Next, a new document. A spreadsheet. I had been building it mentally for years. A running tally of every loan, never repaid, every emergency that turned out to be a vacation. The $20 for gas, the $5,000 for the medical bills that funded a trip to Atlantic City. I entered them all line by brutal line. This wasn't about emotion. This was about establishing a pattern. It was data. My phone buzzed. My mother. Asterisk. "Honey, where did you go?" We were worried. Asterisk, I didn't answer. It buzzed again. My father. A phone call. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. They weren't shocked by what they had done. They were shocked I had finally stopped playing along. The final step for the night was an email to Sarah Vance, a college friend who had become one of the city's most ruthless financial crimes attorneys. The subject line was simple times asset recovery, asterisk. The body was even simpler, asterisk, Sarah. My parents have illegally transferred $78,000 from my savings account. I have transaction records and a documented history of financial manipulation. I am formally retaining you to recover my assets and pursue all available legal remedies. This is not a family dispute. This is theft. Let me know your retainer fee, Luna. Asterisk, I hit send at 12:03 in the morning. Leaning back against the headrest, I finally let myself take a breath. There was only clarity. This wasn't a breakdown. It was a balance sheet. And inside the car, my laptop glowed with a different kind of sunrise, the kind made of case numbers, wire fraud statutes, and quiet, cold retribution. To understand this response, you have to understand the training ground. Growing up with my parents, Robert and Diana, was a masterclass in financial instability. My father never met a gamble he could resist. He'd disappear for days, returning either flushed with cash or more commonly desperate, looking for anything of value to pawn. My mother was his chief enabler. "Your father just needs one good win," she'd say, searching my room for spare change. My earliest memory of their exploitation came when I was 6. I had saved birthday money in a pink ceramic piggy bank. For months, I dropped in every coin I earned. The weight of it was my pride. One night, I heard a crash. I found my father standing over the shattered remains coins clutched in his fist. "Just borrowing this, princess," he said without looking at me. "Double your money by morning, promise." The money never returned. The phrase borrowing from the Luna Bank became a family joke for my father taking the $5 meant to last me the week. By 16, I hid money. By 17, I had a secret bank account. By 18, I was gone with $342 and a vow to never depend on anyone again. Those first years were a brutal montage of survival. Waitressing from 5 in the morning, retail until 10 at night, community college classes in the gaps. I lived in a studio with 4 other girls. But through sheer will, I maintained a 3.8 GPA, which led to a marketing internship. My boss Vivian saw something in me and became my mentor. For the next decade, I climbed, junior copywriter to content strategist to department lead. While colleagues bought new cars, I lived in the same apartment, drove the same sedan, and invested every spare dollar. Last year, I was promoted to senior marketing director. My salary doubled. For the first time, I could breathe. The $78,000 in my savings account wasn't just cash. It was my freedom. The down payment on a life I had built inch by painful inch. Over the years, my relationship with my parents remained a carefully managed liability. They called when they needed money. After losing $5,000 to them 3 years ago for medical bills that became a gambling trip, I set a firm boundary: no more money. Their response was predictable. I became the cold, ungrateful daughter. When the invitation to the family reunion arrived, I almost tossed it. But my therapist, Dr. Winters, suggested attending with strong boundaries might provide closure. Observe, don't participate, she advised. How desperately I wanted to believe we could be a normal family. How completely that hope would betray me. I arrived at their house on a Friday evening, immediately cataloging the changes. The shabby bungalow of my childhood now had fresh siding and professional landscaping. Your father has been doing handyman work, my mother explained dismissively. I knew his work. Nothing he built ever lasted. This was the work of contractors. The interior told the same story: new hardwood floors, gleaming kitchen appliances, a 70-inch television. For people who regularly pleaded for help with utility bills, they lived surprisingly well. Brace yourself, honey, my Aunt Lisa whispered as she hugged me. She was my lifeline, the one adult who saw through their manipulation. The house filled with family. In the kitchen, my mother held court beside a spread of catered food she claimed to have cooked. There she is, my father boomed. The big career woman. He paraded me around his arm, heavy on my shoulders, bragging about my success. My mother was just as attentive, asking detailed questions about my job and my finances with an intensity she'd never shown before. They're laying it on thick, my younger brother Jacob muttered to me. He had followed my example, moving out at 18 and keeping his distance. Mom asked if you were still with that investment broker, he warned. Seems really interested in your financial situation. Patrick and I broke up 6 months ago, I said, confused. I told her that. Jacob raised an eyebrow. She also mentioned you must be doing well to afford that luxury condo downtown. I live in a standard apartment. Nothing luxury about it. A familiar unease settled in. They were fishing for information. Despite the red flags, a foolish part of me wanted to believe this weekend could be different. When my father asked me to sit at his right hand at dinner, a childish pleasure bloomed. When he listened intently as I explained a marketing campaign, I saw the father I'd always wanted. After dinner, my mother pulled out photo albums. Remember when Luna saved up for 6 months to buy that bicycle, she said, pointing to a photo. She didn't mention how that bike vanished 2 weeks later, sold to a pawn shop by my father. Smart with money, my father added. Not like her old dad. Say, how is that investment portfolio doing? Patrick had you in some good stocks, right? Basking in the warm attention. I answered too openly. Actually, my new investments have performed really well. My advisor shifted some assets into tech startups that nearly tripled. My father whistled. Smart girl. Bet you've got a nice nest egg growing. She does, Aunt Lisa interrupted firmly, and she works incredibly hard for every penny of it. The conversation shifted, but financial topics kept resurfacing. By midnight exhausted, I excused myself. I placed my purse in the bedside drawer, a habit from years of protecting my things. Before I slept, I felt a fragile hope. That hope would not survive the morning. I woke at 7:30 to my phone buzzing with transaction alerts. Half asleep, I opened my banking app. The balance displayed was $8,372. Yesterday, it had been $78,837. My first thought was a glitch. I restarted the app. The balance remained. My heart hammered as I checked the history. A series of transfers had drained the account between 2 and 4 in the morning, all authorized from an unknown device. I called the bank's fraud department. Yes, Miss Carter, the representative said. We show several large transfers last night. I didn't authorize them, I insisted. According to our records, the transfers were authorized using your correct password and the authentication app on your registered device, the accessing IP address. She paused. It appears to be your current location. My blood ran cold. Where did the money go? Several different accounts. The largest was to a Robert Carter. Is that name familiar? My father. My own father had drained my savings while I slept under his roof. I ended the call and searched my purse. My wallet was there, but the small notebook in a secondary compartment was subtly out of place. Someone had been through my bag. Flashes from the night before, my mother insisting on taking my jacket, my purse left briefly in the living room, the unusually deep sleep after the single glass of wine she'd pressed on me. They had planned this. The reunion, the warmth, the questions, it was all a setup. The physical symptoms hit. My hands trembled. Nausea drove me to the bathroom. $78,000, my security, gone. A text from my cousin appeared. Asterisk. Thanks for the amazing gift, Uncle Rob said. You insisted on helping with my education. Asterisk. Then another. Asterisk. Generous of you to contribute to the family vacation rental. Rob says you're covering half. Asterisk finally from my brother. Asterisk Luna, call me as soon as possible. Something is wrong. Mom and Dad are suddenly flushed with cash. Asterisk. I called Jacob, my voice tight with a cold rage. I knew it, he said. They've been planning this for months. Dad told me they were expecting a windfall. Downstairs, I heard laughter. My parents were having breakfast celebrating their theft. They don't see it as yours, Jacob said softly. In their minds, they deserve it more. They'll never understand what they did was wrong. I ended the call. This wasn't a family dispute. This was a crime. The last lingering hope of reconciliation died. They were not family. They were thieves who shared my DNA, and I would treat them accordingly. My first instinct was to storm downstairs, but impulsive reactions gave them power. I needed to be strategic. I had already emailed my lawyer, Sarah Vance. Her reply was waiting. Asterisk. Do not confront them. Document everything. I'll meet you at my office at noon. Asterisk. Next, I called Aunt Lisa. I was afraid of this, she said, her voice heavy. Your mother has been dropping hints about a new car for weeks. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Do not go downstairs alone. While waiting, I methodically gathered evidence. Screenshots of the transfers. Photos of my searched bag. A video walkthrough of the house documenting their new expensive purchases. Then I found it. A notification showed my banking authentication app had been accessed at 2:15 in the morning. They must have used my fingerprint while I slept. The violation made me physically ill. When Lisa arrived, I slipped out to her car. She hugged me as I finally allowed a single cold tear to fall. This is theft, Luna. Plain and simple, she said. We drove to Sarah's office. For the next 3 hours, we built a case. Sarah contacted the bank's fraud department, establishing a formal investigation. Lisa provided written testimony about my parents' spending patterns. This will get ugly, Sarah warned. They will claim it was a gift. They will turn family against you. Are you prepared for that? They already stole my money, I replied. What else can they take? Your peace of mind, your energy for months, maybe years. Neither was earning that money, I said firmly. I want it back, all of it. We developed a multi-pronged approach. First, the bank would freeze any remaining funds. Second, we would file a police report. Third, we would confront my parents with legal representation, giving them one chance to return the money before criminal charges were filed. Before leaving, I called Dr. Winters and scheduled an emergency session. You need emotional support as much as legal support, she reminded me. This is a profound betrayal. That evening, our legal strategy was in place. I spent the night at Lisa's hotel receiving texts from Jacob. They're buying everyone gifts with your money, he reported. It's disgusting. The next morning, Sarah, Lisa, and I met to review our approach. Michael, an associate from Sarah's firm, had arranged for a sheriff's deputy to accompany us, waiting outside unless needed. I carried a bag with documented proof of every previous financial manipulation. I was ready. I had been ready for this my entire life. We arrived at my parents' house at exactly 10 in the morning. The sheriff's deputy parked discreetly down the street. My hand trembled slightly as I rang the doorbell. My father answered surprise, flickering across his face before settling into a practiced smile. Luna, we wondered where you disappeared to. And Lisa, who's your friend? This is Sarah, I said flatly. My attorney. His smile faltered. Attorney, what's this about Diana? Come see who's here. My mother appeared, her eyes darting nervously between us and the portfolio under Sarah's arm. May we come in? Lisa asked. We stepped into the living room, the air crackling with tension. Robert, Diana, I began formally. You know why I am here. You accessed my financial accounts without permission and transferred $78,000. My father scoffed, settling into his new leather recliner. It's just money, Luna. You have plenty more where that came from. That was my house down payment, I replied, my voice steady. Money I saved for 14 years. We needed it more, he said with a dismissive wave. The family needed it. Honey, we were going to discuss it with you, my mother added, her eyes wide with practiced innocence. We just knew you'd say no if we asked first. Because you never repay what you borrow, I countered. That is theft. We gave you life, my father snapped. Everything you have comes from us. That makes it family money. Sarah stepped forward. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, I represent Luna. You have committed identity theft, bank fraud, and grand larceny. My mother's eyes filled with tears. How could you bring a lawyer against your own parents? You mean after you accessed my accounts while I slept in your home as a guest, I interrupted. I have documented everything. The bank has already frozen the remaining funds. My father's face flushed. You can't prove anything. Maybe you gave us your passwords, and now you're having regrets. Actually, Sarah interjected the transfers occurred between 2 and 4 in the morning. The authentication was completed using her fingerprint while she was unconscious. That elevates this to a more serious category of crime. My mother's tears vanished. You have always been dramatic, Luna. You have a choice, I said. Return my money in full by tomorrow, or I press charges. My father laughed a harsh, humorless sound. Go ahead. See how that plays with the family. At that precise moment, a loud knock shook the front door. Michael entered with the deputy. Robert and Diana Carter, the deputy asked. I have here an emergency order freezing your assets in connection with a fraud investigation. My father jumped to his feet. This is ridiculous. Actually, sir, I have a warrant. The deputy handed him the document. My mother began to cry again, this time with genuine fear. Luna, how could you do this to us? We're your parents. Parents don't steal from their children, I replied. They protect them. The front door opened again. My Aunt Ruth and Uncle Thomas entered, arriving for the barbecue my parents had planned. What is going on here? Ruth asked. Your brother stole $78,000 from Luna, Lisa explained bluntly. Uncle Thomas turned to my father, disbelief on his face. Rob, tell me this isn't true. My father's silence was answer enough. As more family arrived, the scene devolved into chaos. My cousin Ellie tearfully offered to return the laptop purchased with my stolen money. Jacob arrived and stood firmly by my side. This was not about revenge. It was about justice. It was about finally breaking the cycle. This is not over, my father threatened as we prepared to leave. Family doesn't do this to family. You're right, I agreed, meeting his gaze. Family does not do this to family. Remember that. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal proceedings. The bank had frozen the accounts, but recovering the money was complicated. My parents were charged with identity theft and financial fraud. They hired a defense attorney claiming the money was a gift and I was having regrets. The family fractured. "How could you do this over money?" one cousin demanded. "This isn't about money," I replied. "It's about trust and boundaries." They violated both. Aunt Lisa was my rock. Jacob struggled but supported my decision. "Were the good moments real?" he asked me once, "or just more manipulation?" "Both can be true," I told him. "We can remember the good without excusing the bad." The mental toll was immense. I struggled with trust issues and insomnia. "You are experiencing trauma," Dr. Winters explained. "Being victimized by parents violates our most fundamental trust." My mother took to social media, painting herself as the victim of an ungrateful daughter. I deactivated my accounts, cutting myself off. 6 weeks in, I wavered. The stress was affecting my health. The legal bills mounted. "Maybe I should just let it go," I told Lisa. "You could," she said. "But this cycle will never end unless you end it. They've never faced consequences." She was right. The next day, I reaffirmed my commitment. Small victories accumulated. The bank restored $34,000. Several relatives returned gifts. Most importantly, I began building a new support system of chosen family. My friends rallied around me. My colleague Zoe invited me to her family Thanksgiving, where I experienced holiday warmth without underlying tension for the first time. By December, 7 months after the theft, I had recovered nearly $50,000. The trial date was set for February. Jacob, having started therapy himself, came to a new clarity. "They will never change," he told me. "But we can. We can build something better." For the first time, I felt genuine hope, not the naive hope that led me to the reunion, but something stronger built on self-respect and boundaries. 1 year after the theft, I stood in the courtroom. My parents had accepted a plea agreement. The court ordered full